The broadcast is live.
Okay, all you heathens out there and all that stuff. I'm tired of the cool cats and kitties, man. She's a murderess. But we got Paulo over here from Portugal. It's actually 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and this is the first time I've seen Paulo with sunshine behind him. It's kind of weird. Kind of like seeing Sandman on Nickelodeon.
The first time we had Paolo on, I think it ended at 2 a.m. his time, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then we have Jared there, who's probably been bicycling or something on this Saturday.
I was out cycling this morning.
And then
did my exercise.
And then we have Scott, who is stunned that I spent $40 this morning.
That's amazing.
He's playing guitar like usual.
Yeah. If my channel wasn't called Howler Mouse, it would be Cheap Bastard if I could get by with
it. Cheap Bastard and his piles of comics.
Yeah.
Which one's he gonna whittle down first to get to the books he's actually gonna buy?
Though I was thinking about I thought about this at some time. Though I bought expensive books like those artist edition books.
Right.
They're $100 to $125 a piece.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't know that I've ever spent more than $10 or $20 on an actual individual comic because I don't buy back issues.
We see you got somebody like me who I planned when that first Commandy Artist Edition was announced. I started hustling 2 or 3 months before it, and I got it for
you have to turn up your mic a little bit there, Tim. You're lower than usual. Where's your mic?
How's this? How about I bring it over to my face?
Bring it right over to your face, will you?
Keep going until it gets in the center, and then you'll be good.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can we?
Yeah, you can hear you just fine.
Right. But I started hustling. I ended up getting a brand new Commandy Arts Edition, which the suggested price for the retailer was $125 for $35. Is what it came down.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. The cheapest I've ever got an artist edition is probably $60.
Yeah. But I got an absolute edition from DC today for $15 that I'll be showing.
That is crazy. See,
what?
That brings us also back to my discussion last week of who's going to be buying those Walking Dead individual comic book reprints in color for $4 a piece. Because you said the phone book editions were there for $10, right? Of the Walking Dead.
Yeah, the phone book editions, you can buy four of those, $10 a piece, and you have the entire series.
Right.
I can't believe the 4th edition is already out at Ollie's. That already shows you something's happening. That's not a warehouse issue.
Right. So who's going to be buying for $4 a piece these Walking Dead reprints?
Collectors.
I don't get it.
Not
like the over under for me is 50 issues, and I'm betting the under.
Yeah.
Maybe we're seeing a division in the way that some fans will be treated by the publishers because using wrestling, using terms from wrestling, we are smarts, and the people who buy them new are marks.
But I don't think there's that many marks out there. I don't think there's enough marks out there to support Walking Dead color edition twice a month, $4. I mean, we'll see.
I wonder if they're marketing that at just Walking Dead fans of the TV show and not necessarily comic readers.
Fans of the TV show are not going to walk into a comic shop and buy the individual issues.
You're right.
No.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right.
But they are going to buy the omnibus for $50.
In my pickups this week, I've got Usagi Yojimbo Color Classics number 5. This is a reprint of 30-year-old Usagi Yojimbo in color for the first time, and I'm the mark who buys this. I mean,
well, I'll be the second mark that'll buy that.
They'll be putting this out in trade. I know that, but I want the individual issues. So I'm the guy who would buy Walking Dead maybe in individual issues in color, and even I'm not interested.
Right.
So it's just kind of like I just have no idea who's going to buy those. Like the Walking Dead Weekly, how many issues did that last? I don't even remember. They put out the Walking Dead Weekly, which were black and white reprints. This is about 10 years ago now of the Walking Dead stuff. I don't think that lasted 50 issues. I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
So just when you can walk into Ollie's and get for $10 for $40 get the entire series.
Well, I thought about, and I wished I'd like wrote down my thoughts, but I'm kind of wondering if there's something else in legalities that we don't know about Kirkman getting more money or something, hopefully for the reprints, the color editions, because if you look at music, you had the Sex Pistols claim that the masters were stolen of their music. So they're re-recording it. They own the masters. Sharon Osbourne and Ozzy got a band together and they redid all the album they did with Randy Rhoads.
Don't get me
without
started.
Randy Rhoads. Yeah, it's dirty business.
Don't
and
get me
now they
started.
don't have to give the Randy Rhoads family any royalties because they have the masters without Randy Rhoads. I'm wondering if there's something going on with this behind the scenes like that. It's a shady business.
I think it's more likely they just think they've got a big enough audience.
Well, there was a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit that Kirkman had with one of the original artists. I can't remember if it was Allard or
Tony Moore
or whatever it was. So I'm kind of wondering if there's some kind of deal there. Maybe this is a way to get.
You're right. It could be.
That's what I'm getting at. There was some legality. There's enough there to at least speculate that maybe there's some kind of legalities behind that.
Yeah, I'd say unless you're part of that inner circle, you'll never know.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's much more likely. It's like Usagi Yojimbo. They're putting these out to subsidize the color trade stuff. I mean, that's just
yeah. And considering we're the only ones really talking about it, apparently it's not that big a deal. That's what
I always wondered if there are a lot of fans doing this accounting on their heads, like your favorite series does not come out in trade every month. Mm-hmm. So it's okay to wait to spend $25 on a large volume because you're just buying that series that month. Well, if you're only doing monthlies, you end up spending $25 anyway. It's just divided among several titles. So some people don't. I know that some people don't want to spend $25 in one item,
right?
But since you're not buying that type of item every time, if they do the accounting that it's that switching the 25 a week on several titles and waiting for all those titles to get collected, it ends up to spending the same amount of money.
Yeah,
I think
per week.
I think people do the math on that.
I'm one of those people to do the math. I mean, I'll buy a used trade for $1 of like Starman, so I don't have to drag my books out or my omnibus. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
You'll do the math, but you'll also do the convenience. And plus, what people forget is you can still be smart and watch your money, but part of comic books is addictive behavior. You want to feed that monkey every month because you're used to going and getting your books every month. It's behavior.
I don't think it's addictive. I just think it's how you prefer. Like I'm liking going to the comic shop less during the pandemic because I don't get to hang out.
Right.
But part of the reason I like monthly comics is the social nature of it, and I like the periodical nature of the comics. I like reading one issue now, discussing it on YouTube or amongst friends about what's happening, rather than the problem I find with trades is people only want to discuss them right after they've bought them. So you just buy the latest trade of, I don't know, whatever. You just buy the latest trade of Walking Dead. Once you're finished reading it, you want to now discuss it with people. Well, you can only discuss it with people who have also finished reading The Walking Dead at that moment.
With other addicts. Yeah.
It narrows who you can talk to. I mean, to some people that doesn't. There are plenty of comic fans who have no one to talk about with their comics. So there's that. But for me, it's like I like that, going to the comic shop. What's new? What's happening? Did you like this? Did you like that? I wasn't too fond of this. I wasn't too fond. Well, what do you think is going to happen in this book? What's going to happen? I think it's much more interactive when you buy the individual issues.
Right.
Hey, Sleepy Reader, he just said hi.
Hey, what's up, Sleepy?
Hey.
I'll tell you what, I do remember 2 or 3 times in my early teen years, making it to the comic book shop. I mean, making it to the getting off the bus, running, around the corner to the pharmacies, hitting that spinner rack, having my money in my pocket, and there's nothing I wanted to buy or already had it. What did I do? I was like, oh, so disappointed. And what I'll do, I run to a Magic Mart. And then that weekend, I walk 3 or 4 miles to the other side of a town to another pharmacy that I know of. It's addictive. I think there's a part of this that I do think is addictive behavior, but not like it's your routine and what you're talking about. We're kind of saying the same thing. I'm just putting another label on it.
Right. It could be habitual, but it's not. I wouldn't call it addiction. And
habitual. I will say that habitual is the better word. There we go. Habit
is a powerful thing. One of the things that I could remember. I don't know if he originated this, but I always heard him say it in the 90s, Bob Harris, the editor of the X-Men. And I was especially in the 90s, it was more important to get the books out on time than to make them good, kind of thing. There was more pressure on the editors to get the books out on time than there was to make them good. And Bob Harris would always say, we don't want those X-Men fans to know that it's okay to miss an issue. Yeah. It's like he knew if the book didn't come out on time, it might break their habit.
Oh, yeah.
So what did Tommy Bagley say about The Walking Dead there?
Yeah, and a habit can be broken 30 days. Yeah. And how often did a comic book come out back in the day?
Right. So they waited too long to put out the color Walking Dead. I have family members who love the show and we've tried the comic, but they're turned off by the black and white. Yeah, there are people who are turned off by the black and white. I can understand them putting it in color. I just don't understand. I can even understand them putting it out in color trades. I just don't understand them putting it out in color individual issues. I think that there's just not enough people to buy those.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see.
There's the way that we enjoy comics as periodicals and the way that we enjoy comics as perennials. It's kind of different, and we're still very used to seeing American, you especially because you don't have European comics like I do,
right?
So to you everything is a periodical. But what we did when I was the periodicals, I would go with a friend, we'd buy a book each, and after that we'd trade, or if we weren't together, hey, have you read this one? And we would stay appraised of everything that was going on by exchanging books between us, and then we'll wait for the next ones. But with the European comics, which is kind of something that you can do with the perennial trade paperbacks in the US, is I can ask, hey, have you ever read Enki Bilal's Immortals, which is something from the 80s?
Right.
But if they're kept in print, and if I can recommend them, is because they're good. So they're always in print. The ones that are not good, they disappear. So we don't recommend them. But I have a couple of series that, like a Western called Manos Kelly, and a barbarian called Tahar the Rebel. Those series disappeared in France, and we don't talk about them in the same way. But we can recommend Enki Bilal's Immortals. We can recommend the Incal. We can recommend the entire series of Torgal. The one problem is with Torgal being in 30 odd albums is that you can go buy all the 30 odd albums, but you don't want to do all of them at once. Right. But
I'm okay with perennials. It's just that there's only one chance to read it in an episodic fashion. Once you miss that one chance to read it as it comes out as a periodical, you never get it again. You can always read it as a graphic novel. I mean, you've got the rest of your life to read I just read all of Fatale again, as 24 issue graphic novel. And it was really good. I enjoyed it, but there was only one chance to read it as it came out. So that's one of the reasons I like the periodic ones.
Plus, with U.S. comics, we're still working on a publishing, I don't know if model is the right word, that actually carry over from pulp magazines. Yeah.
The Sleepy Reader just said the same thing I did in different words. You understand binging stories, but stories spinning out in monthly bits does have an extra compelling aspect to it to me. Right. Because, like I said, because you're more involved with it, you're more involved with talking to your friends, It's the difference between watching a TV show every week and binge watching an entire TV show that weekend. Is when you're watching the TV show every week, you talk about it at the water cooler.
I tell you what, this is one of the cool things, at least for me, that with my ADD brain, talking to other collectors and stuff, Paula was talking about, and I'm not going to like take us off the track here, but Paula was saying stuff like Immortals and stuff still in print. It made me think about 2-3 series that were infamous and actually became like cult books or people curious about them that didn't see print forever. Miracle Man, Elementals. They did Strike Force Moratori, I think back in 2010 or 11, but nobody knows those trades are out there. So I'm just going to let you know I had like a brief flash for a topic later if y'all want to do it later, see if there's anything there. But he said that, and I'm like, oh, God, stay focused there, Tim. Stay focused. You know?
And one of the things, too, about graphic novels is Brubaker and Phillips just put out a graphic novel this week, Pulp. And somebody asked me, why didn't? I expected to see you get Pulp this week. How come you didn't? I'm like, when they released, like the last one they released, I forget the name of it, Brubaker and Phillips last summer. When something's released as a graphic novel, I'm in no hurry to get it.
Yeah.
I know the price is only going to go down on it. It's going to be on Amazon for years.
Yep.
And I just don't feel a need to run. And it's something I can put on my Amazon wish list that maybe someone in my family can get me for a birthday or a Christmas present. So I just leave those.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sometimes if it's a hardcover, though, depending on what the print run is, sometimes you can
always get them. The stuff I get, you can always get.
Okay.
Pulp won't be out of print anytime soon.
See, when it comes to graphic novels and stuff, to me, that's where cons come into mind. If you're going budget wise.
Oh, yeah, they're so dirt cheap now at cons.
Yeah. What's been going on is these guys will buy complete collections. They just want the comics. They'll pull out all the trades. Soft covers $5, hardbacks $10. And they they get them in the box, and people swarm on those. Or you go to an outlet Ollie's place and you get an absolute edition for $15.
Trade paperbacks are so cheap on the secondary market. I don't know how they make any profit on. I don't know how Marvel, DC, or Image make any profit on them. They're just so cheap. Things staying in print. Yeah, things don't always stay in print, but a lot of times they do these days. What did Tommy Bagley say about getting
cash grab?
You get paid faster that's part of the model is the comics make the money back immediately.
Yeah. Mastodon said Walking Dead sounds like a cash grab with the things.
It is. I understand them wanting to color Walking Dead because it's going to sell better in color. So I 100% understand that. I just think if they're selling individual issues in color as a cash grab, I don't think there's going to be much cash there. Yeah. Some of my favorite comic book memories involve a stack of well-read comics I could bring to a friend's house. Yeah, they could read new comics. That was always fun, bringing your comics to a friend's house.
I got all this other stuff to read. I've got all this stuff I'm cataloging. I've got this stack in there that I'm trying to get through, of older stuff. And what happened? I've been binging Hellboy the last couple of days. I totally get them. Get them. And I sketched in my sketchbook trying to draw a picture. And this isn't good because all of a sudden I was like, damn, that came out good. And I realized I just channeled Mignola. I totally ripped him off. Totally ripped him off. I was like, that's a Mignola drawing. Wannabe drawing. Okay. But the thing about me is graphic novels. To me, it seems like I'm the same way you are, Jared. Like, I can wait. It's going to be around forever. I'll find it on sale or something. But when you have a sale, which was my point, if you want to push graphic novels, it's almost like you got to have a sale before people really do walk out with stacks of them.
Right. Well, so the problem I have with walking out with a stack, too, is because from about like maybe 2008 to 2010, 11, we're just talking about the Walking Dead Volume 4 compendium at Ollie's for $10. So who's going to buy the issues? But anyway, there was a good 3-4 years there where before the Image Renaissance in like 2012, there was just not that many monthly books for me.
Right.
I was buying maybe a handful of books a month, and I started looking for like graphic novels and stuff, anything that I could buy that week. Just be like I said, there was just not that much stuff coming out that I liked in like 2008, let's say.
Right.
So I started, buying graphic novels or trades just to try stuff out, whatever I could. And the problem I eventually found with that, when you're buying like cheap trades or whatever, when you're looking for something new to read and you pick up a comic and you don't like it, you've got one issue of a bad comic. When you're buying a trade to look for something to read and you pick it up and you don't like it, you've got 6 to 10 issues of a comic you don't like. So I ended up with this big stack of comics. I did, and I'd look over at it and just get like depressed. I'd be like, I have that much shelf space taken up by comics I didn't want.
Right.
And it was just kind of like, and you just kind of get overwhelmed by comics you don't want. So I'm just like, So that actually brought me, I ended up, as a matter of fact, it was just when the New 52 started. Because I remembered I had just, right before then, I was like, I have to find, and I started just ordering regular monthly comics just to try them. I'm like, I can't do trades anymore. I ended up with too many bad trades. So it was like, and then luckily right after that, Image just exploded with a lot of comics I liked. But yeah, that's the problem. When you walk out with a stack of trades, you could very well end up with half of it just crap. And you got to figure out what to do with them then, because nobody wants trades.
I'll take a chance on a trade over price, but when it comes to a trade, I usually know what I'm getting. But go ahead, Paulo. I didn't mean to.
I was thinking that with prices the way they are now, and thinking that you don't want to use a trade as a sampler. Right. And now I'm thinking about the Japanese model. The Japanese model is very good for sampling. Because those phone books that they sell, they're cheap, and if you like I like this series, then I'll wait for the digest sized manga collection, and then I buy that series. But we don't have to read everything every month, but we can pick the stuff that we like, and it's cheaper that way.
Yeah, the Japanese model is all about distribution, though. Too, they have distribution. Good distribution. So when trades began, they're at least 10% more in cost than the total. Yeah, now you get trades cheaper with more division. And like I said, that brings back my my Brooklyn Bridge effect. You're either the sucker who buys the issue or the asshole who waits for trades. That's your choice. That's it. You got nothing else.
This is an interesting question. Maybe cheap trades are the new stack of comics to share with friends, or do you think the trades as well are treated more as collectibles than readers?
I don't think the trades are treated as collectibles. I think they're treated as readers. But people, I've found that just giving trades away to my friends, they don't want them. It's like, no, I don't want to bother. I mean, these are a lot of my friends who are lapsed. You would think handing them a stack of, well, you're also handing them a stack of crappy trades. You're not handing them a stack of your good trades.
That makes a difference.
What's Scorpio out saying there?
The price there.
Entire runs of titles online, yes, or if one can wait and buy used. That's another thing when I say you're the sucker or the asshole.
Yeah, the thing is, I've managed to I've been given trades by people who didn't like them, and that I ended up liking them, and vice versa. So eventually, I think we'll find a good home for that book.
But when you say, "Here's this stack of crappy trades," you want them? And they're crappy trades. Let's not mix words. They might like one or two of them, but the other 19 they're going to think is crap. I got a lot of crappy trades around here because I'm the guy who takes crappy trades from people. So
I can go to a Books A Million, and I can go to the comic book conventions, and I swear I see boxes and boxes of trades nobody's touching from Marvel going back to like 2008. I mean, it blows my mind they can't move that stuff.
Right.
Now,
he's putting the trade in trade paperback.
Now, the thing about the trades is when it comes back is what I've noticed is that there's like trades, hardbacks, but it seems like it's the absolute edition and the omnibuses that seem to be collectible, if that makes sense. Like those have a resale value if you want to put them on eBay or something.
Here's a random stack of trades that one of my friends who used to work at Marvel was getting rid of that I just happen to have. I got no place for them. They're sitting on top of my dryer right now. We've got Black Panther for the hard way. We've got Marvel Zombie Dead Days. Oh. We've got random Danger Girl trade. We've got X Factor Invisible Woman Has Vanished.
What?
Catwoman It's Only a Movie. Deadpool Dark Reign. And Deadpool Secret Invasion. Nobody wants these.
Yeah, no.
They've been sitting around here for what?
No, it's the way those stories are made and the context in which they're published that prevents those from. Yeah, you know, when we think of, for example, a run of a title that we like the Claremont Byrne X-Men or the Leighton Michelini Iron Man, they were not made for the trade, so they work better in trades because of it.
Yeah.
See, I thought I was going to match you on a big stack of trades, but they're boxed. I'm not going to open the box, but I've got trades laying around to get rid of the same way. I swear, I think we could do some kind of video series where everybody like tag people and show your trades you can't get rid of that nobody wants.
My friend Jerry just gave me, 10 boxes of comics and trades that because he was moving that are out. I'm like, what am I going to do with these now? You can't sell these on eBay for $5. You can put them together in all one big stack and sell them for $5. But what's the point of that?
Right.
Yeah. Unless they're omnibus editions or
omnibuses you can sell.
That's almost like a whole genre of collecting, and I refuse to believe that people who collect.
There's actually groups that specialize just in individual formats of collected books these days.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody specializes in Black Panther for the hard way trades. Nobody.
Right.
One thing I like about trades is the additional stuff that is added. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of understand that, but
that's the
how many people
for the assholes who wait for trades, us suckers who buy the issue.
Who reads the trade paperback's preface?
Depends on who wrote it.
So I suppose.
I got random trades from family members.
Even not knowing who wrote it, I'm more likely to read the preface of a book that I feel to be seminal important than of something that I just bought because I'm buying the series as trades instead of individual issues.
I would like to put this comment under things only comic book collectors say.
Amazon wish lists. That's what you got. You got to get your family into using Amazon wish lists.
Well, I tried, but my Amazon wish lists are so large that the UN granted them sovereign nation status.
Put one just for presents your family will buy you. You need a separate Amazon wish list.
I'll put it to you this way. I found out that one Amazon wish list caps out at 1,000 items.
Yeah.
Get one just for your family to buy.
I have several.
Okay. Well, don't have several. Have one. Don't confuse your poor family. These have the best prefaces. The Marvel Marvel Atlas era.
Yeah.
If you like the history of comics, because there's one guy, he's a dentist in Manhattan. He writes all the prefaces. What's his name here? Dr. Michael J. Vasalo.
I recognize that name.
Yeah, that guy's good.
And he's spent all his hobby hours researching 1950s Marvel Atlas people.
Right.
And so he writes and they're just fast. I just love them. It's a good history of comics. Better than the comics are the prefaces in these.
There's some Facebook group I'm on where those Atlas, what you're talking about, have been popping up. It's funny you popped one out after it's been popping up on Facebook the last 2 days. Now here's the one that gets me. Some early trades had cover art exclusives for the trade. I'm surprised those have not become collectible. There's a few trades out there that are collectible, like the very first Sandman trade. But this is why I wait. This is why I got rid of 99% of my Hellboy books and started getting these little trades, because Mike Mignola will add pages for pacing and stuff, and sometimes he'll have an epilogue in them that you won't get in the comics.
Oh.
So I'm with Dave here. I'm kind of wondering how come some of these trades with Hellboy didn't go up.
Well, some of them do because different printings or editions of some of the Hellboy trades do have different covers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's got extra pages. He tells you where the pages are, and when you read this, his little editorials.
Yeah, the only trades I've really seen go up are like those Miracle Man trades, which were out of print for so long. They shot up in price.
It was infamous because of word of mouth. When Marvel announced they were finally putting out the Miracle Man books, I really wanted to tell people to lower their expectations because comics caught up with what those books were doing in the 80s to where it surpassed some of the shock in there, I'm going to show some 2-3 Ollie things here. See if we get there here because I just bought these this morning. But this is a $100 absolute edition for $15 that you can run and get. Green Arrow by Kevin Smith. And what I like about this, it had great Matt Wagner covers, but this was Kevin Smith not being the character Kevin Smith. I think this is the best series of books he's actually written. Where it was, you read it, you didn't feel like it was Kevin Smith writing it. It was just straight out.
Astonishing X-Men was pretty good.
Huh?
I thought his Astonishing X-Men was pretty good.
Yeah. Kevin Smith wrote Astonishing X-Men?
Yeah, that's who wrote it, right?
I thought Josh Whedon did that.
No, the original with John Cassidy.
No.
That was the dude that did Buffy.
Yeah,
that was Josh.
Whedon. That was Josh Whedon.
That was Joss Whedon. Okay, well, Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men was pretty good.
Kevin Smith did Daredevil and Marvel Knights, which helped lead Joe Quesada taking over. Yeah. And then he did a Spider-Man miniseries he never finished, and a Daredevil miniseries he never. Well, I think he's might have finished them by now. And a Daredevil series he never finished.
Didn't he also do a Green Hornet series?
He did I think he got those out.
Okay.
My thing is I like Kevin Smith, but when I read a Kevin Smith comic book, it's a Kevin Smith comic book. I don't know
if I've ever read a Kevin Smith comic book. Then I'm trying to think. I may have read an issue or two of his Daredevil with Joe Quesada, but that was it. May have read an issue or two of it. Did he do Spider-Man Black Cat that took him forever to finish?
Yeah, that was
and that's what I mean. It was you can tell it was a Kevin Smith story. The whole thing was it was like, hey, I'm a villain, but I can teleport things. I will teleport heroin into your veins so you'll have no marks on you for the celebrities. So I'm saying he tries to be clever, but when he wrote Green Arrow,
that's more Dr. Manhattan stuff. That I call that one the when in order to teleport
you got to remove blood and pull it back before you can put anything in your vein.
You have to be able to have the perceptions, some sort of extrasensory perception to be able to teleport heroin to someone's body. Yeah.
Comic book science, man. Comic book science.
It'd be Dr. Manhattan off in the stars looking at cosmos.
Comic book science. I can be a biologist and a geologist and still be able to build an android. Okay.
Yeah, the science.
And a theoretical physicist in the very sense of the word.
$40, and I got it for $10. Graphic ink,
nice.
Quietly DC stuff.
Oh, now, okay.
I like Frank Quietly, but I mean, I'm on record saying when he started out, he just drew Frank Miller without shadows, and it was really cool watching him become something more.
Robin flashing up his crotch.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you pointed that out because I was trying to be tasteful, but this is why I noticed the book. I was walking down the aisle and I went, oh.
You need a Tom of Finland version of that.
Strangely enough, this is like the
we don't.
Yeah. For some reason, this is the third or fourth Robin cover of anything I have where it's his crotch right in your face or somebody else's face. I don't know what that is.
Are you guys familiar with Tom of Finland?
I know. Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Okay.
No.
Look him up on the internet one day. He's an artist from Finland.
Yeah, Tim, when you do, make sure that you have your safe search turned off just to get the full effect.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Now, I don't know how much this is, but I mean, I've seen this for sale for $75, and it doesn't have the price tag on the outside.
Oh.
But this is Paul Levitz. Anything Paul Levitz does, I'll do. This is DC in the Silver Age. Big hardback. I think I got this for $12.99. And it's big and heavy. This was the first time I walked through a store and felt like I don't have to go to the gym. And then the last thing I got, I'm not even sure why I got this, but I was there. I was in the moment. I had to hurry and get home. But I got a poster book of 40 removable posters that came out when DC 52 started for $3. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I can put it on the wall and start my knife throwing.
I like the size of that.
Posters are fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm hoping there's an OMAC cover in here. I like the DC 52 OMAC book. Yeah. So go to your Ollie's around. They have coloring books of Walking Dead. They have the phone book editions. They had 2 through 4 of The Walking Dead for $10 a piece, which somebody said they've also bought. I mean, this is, that's why I think it's funny we ended up talking about trades today. I'm like, this is the day,
Yeah, who's it? David McKenzie here says, I can never resist buying a cheap evergreen trade like Watchmen or Ronin. I'll write on the inside cover my name, home city, and date, and a note to read it, add your name, and pass it along. Well, that's good with evergreen trades, but the 95% of other trades don't get passed along.
See, now this is also amazes me is that you have books that have stayed in print. Now, this is what blows my mind. I mean, we're talking about books that have stayed in print in one form or another for 30 years or more.
Well, that's because DC wanted it in print. If they let it go out of print, they lose it.
But what gets me is that it still sells. It blows my mind.
There was quite a few years it didn't sell much. But it didn't matter. DC was keeping it in print.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you overall look at it, 30, that's what amazes me. 30 years and people are still buying that. You can go to yard sales now. I've seen them for $1 and $5. I mean,
you want to talk about 30 years. You know what I was supposed to be doing today? Having my annual backyard barbecue. This would have been the 30th annual one.
Oh.
Of course, because of the pandemic, not having any parties here. But after 29 straight years of having a backyard barbecue and first Saturday in August, I got nothing.
Well, Jared, you never name drop. We've said this before. We got quite a few people watching right now. Why don't you name drop some of these people that come to that barbecue so they get it? They get it. Okay.
The only ones they'd know is Walt Simonson and Bob Wyachak. Other than that, it's mostly behind the scenes comic people they wouldn't be familiar with. But we've had a good time over the years.
I feel for you, man. All right, I'm just going through some of the comments here.
Oh, back to
the comic, the OMAC comic that Didio and Giffen did. It felt like a Bronze Age Marvel.
That one was all right. I remember reading that one. That was one of the few, because, like I said, I was looking for new things at the time, and that was one of the ones I tried out.
This cracks me up, Gorvidal, saying that my Ollie's is upscale. I totally get what you're saying, but if you saw the town of Bluefield that I drive to and walking into that Ollie's, I really feel bad for whatever Ollie's you walked into.
I've heard some horror stories about various Ollie's. Want to see what I got this week? Picked up White Ash, #5. This has been a good series. Scout Comics. Let's see, who does this? I don't even know who the creators are. Charlie Stickney, Connor Hughes, and colors by Finn Cramb. But nice sort of real life fantasy story with some elves and dwarves in it. Very much been enjoying this one. We also picked up that Texas Blood #2 by Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips, which unfortunately just solidified in my mind that I'm not buying any more Texas Blood. Not that it's terrible. It just didn't hook me. I picked up the first issue, then it didn't hook me. But then they had a shelf copy of this issue, and I only had 3 comics. I'm like, I'll try a second issue. Just didn't make it. Usagi Ujimbo. This is the new color reprints of Usagi. You can pick this up and trade after 7 issues. So, and what else did I get? Oh, some free comic book day stuff, which they're just passing out the free comic book day stuff all year.
Does anything really come out on Free Comic Book Day that ends up being collectible? It blows my mind. I know the whole point is to get you to buy other stuff and be interested, but yeah.
The Boys #1 reprint. I don't have it, so I figured I'd pick it up. And then the other two I picked up just to look at because who cares? This is Dark Horse's Stranger Things. I'm just never going to buy a Stranger Things comic. Well, this is mostly, I think, kids' comics in here. Just flipping through. I haven't actually read it.
We have Stranger Things in album format in Europe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know who. And then Archie Blue Ribbon. I picked this up just to flip through. I'll check out. Here's an Archie Noir page in there.
Hey, you know what?
Archie Noir stuff and the regular Archie stuff. I like, the Archie Noir stuff is pretty cool art in it.
I'll tell you what, I may not back up everything Archie has put out, but they put out some overlooked stuff. They really do. I'm looking for the B-52s Archie, the Ramones Archie, the Afterlife Archie. Yeah. I read some of each one, and I'm like, this is actually better than I expected, And
then the last thing I picked up, which I have a comment on, is The Boys. Dear Becky #3. And the comment I have on this is, I think I discussed this last week. Comics are just too esoteric. Mm-hmm. What happened to putting a caption in?
Yeah.
If you've never read The Boys, this is going to do nothing but confuse you. And it confused me, and I've just read The Boys last month. Because there's 3 times and place in this. Here is today, 2020 with Huey and the girl. And then we flash back to... This is before the original series, The Boys over here, over this side, where they have the Butcher with his wife. And Butcher's wife is dead before the Boys series ends.
Right.
So it's like all of a sudden, and they don't say, 2004, they don't say another time and place, they don't say anything like that. They just switch time and places and don't let you know. And then we switch to just before the Boys series, when the Butcher's wife after she's dead. And it's kind of like there's 3 different time frames in this, and they don't tell you. You're just supposed to figure it out on your own. And it's like
that raises a question for me.
Pick this up and read it.
Right. That raises a question for me. If somebody was to make a comic adaptation of the movie Pulp Fiction, and you had not seen the movie, would the non-lateral storytelling confuse you?
Not if the artist. I think that would depend on the artist on that one. If they actually just took the Quentin Tarantino script, I've actually got the script book because I was wanting to know what was in the briefcase. But the artist would have to have cues in the background or on the clothes or something to help you piece together what came first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
If you're a new leader, you're not piecing this together.
Gotcha.
Hold on, my sister wants to give me a present. What are you giving me here?
I just want to say I heard you sounding sad. I didn't know it was the 30th.
She sounded 30th. I was sounding sad because we're missing out on the 30th annual.
Okay, everybody, we're all going to be real quiet. And we're going to creep on Jared and watch him.
My birthday is the 7th, by the way. That's why I throw the party in the first weekend of August.
And there's other presents, so I just...
let's see. The Many Deaths of Scott Koblish.
Nice.
Once again, this is why I use the Amazon. Are you guys familiar with Scott Koblish's work?
I thought he was going to say The Many Deaths of Scott Connor, and it's like, holy crap.
He always gets confused for Scott Connor at
oh gosh.
He has got Scott Koblish has a T-shirt that says Scott Koblish on it that he wears to Comic Cons because people always confuse him with Scott Connors. And he drew a lot of Deadpool in the recent years, Scott Koblish. But he started doing these comic strips. And he would just post them on Facebook. And it was just him dying in different ways. So each was like a 4-panel gag of him dying.
Okay. Makes sense.
Then, of course, who's the book company on this? But Chronicle Books. Our friend Leah Pelosi, who was an assistant editor at Marvel in the 90s, was an editor. I think she's still with Chronicle Books. She moved across the country. She was an editor at Chronicle Books. And she was like, oh, we can publish that. So Scott finished it up, colored it, and we've got here he is choking on the prize in a box of cereal. So every one of these is him dying in some amusing way. Oh, here we go. He's creating a robot. He's putting the head on a robot, and the robot comes alive, grabs his head, and tears it off because that's what he wants. You can find this on Amazon. Here's another death. Someone throws a stick of dynamite at him. He throws it away, but then his dog brings it back to him. So every panel ends with his death. Oh, here's a happy deer jumping around, la 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 la, jumps on the car crashes, and he dies in a fiery car crash. So a happy deer jumps around, killing him. So that's cool. Yeah. The many deaths of Scott Kovlish. My sister gave it to cheer me up on my non-party day when we didn't make it to the 30th anniversary.
I'm just kind of depressed we're not all eating barbecue right now.
That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
I usually make chili.
Oh, you said the magic word.
I make chili, and my friend Bunch, who was worked with, I know Bunch from college, but he also worked at Marvel in the bullpen with me, and he went on to be an editor at DC too in the early 2000s. Gotcha. He would usually come up the night before and cook pulled pork, wings, then he'd man the barbecue because he always cooked. But then after he left DC, he became a professional barbecue chef for a few years too.
Oh, nice.
In a barbecue joint in Brooklyn. Then he went back into publishing after that. But he really can cook barbecue stuff. So when we had 30 or 40 people over, we'd all be eating barbecue today.
There's certification to become a barbecue chef.
Yeah, you have to know how to run the equipment. You have to get certified to run this equipment in a restaurant in NYC.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I don't know how it is. I don't know how it is in the Northeast where Jared lives, but here in the South, barbecue is some serious business.
Yeah,
they take their barbecue really seriously.
Well, you also have to imagine in a barbecue joint in Brooklyn. They got stuff that can burn the whole neighborhood down.
Right.
So you can't just put anyone behind that stuff.
I imagine that you can even have a barbecue place in Manhattan.
Yeah.
May have to talk Tim into driving up there one of these days and get some barbecue. Chilling.
What? I'll leave for a minute and you're already volunteering me?
We're talking about food and barbecue, and he's like,
I was talking about my barbecue. It's not happening. I was giving him the lowdown on.
He's talking about making chili and barbecue, and I was saying, you and me may have to make a drive up there one of these days.
No.
Yeah.
Afterlife at Arch Reno were very good. Yeah. Just straight horror and tragedy.
What we got here? I'll go ahead.
Something Jared said about captions made me think how much I missed thought balloons. Yeah. There's just no one who. A matter of fact, if I remember correctly, Joss Whedon used thought balloons in the Astonishing X-Men, and that's one of the things that set it apart from all the stuff at the time.
Well, comic books have so many tools to communicate to the reader. That was actually part of the charm of comic books because it was one of the few mediums you were actually in their head in a non-cheesy way if they used them right. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I totally get
current writers.
They fell out of fashion, but there were still thought balloons, except they just made it narration.
Yeah.
Now it's just like endless narration and everything, kind of, except in stuff like The Boys, where they can't put in And it's like, I notice a lot of comics are like that now. It's not just the boys. Like Fatale was like that. They switch timelines, they switch place, and they don't bother to tell you. I'm like, what is it? When did it become not cool to put New York City, 1992, in a comic when you switch time and place?
Right.
It's called an establishing shot. Even TV shows do it. I mean, take anybody who works around the house or in cars or anything, get your toolbox and then start taking tools away and see how easy it is to fix something. I can get not using something. I can get, trying to write different, but I don't understand taking tools away.
And you can give the toolbox to current writers and they don't know what the tools are for. Some of these guys, I think they've never read a normal book, so they don't know how to use narration as exposition.
That blows my mind.
Don't know, and an editor should step in and tell them stuff like that. And one of the editor's jobs is to make sure the story is clear, but they don't.
Maybe it's where I work in a building where I'm the only man. It's like 15 other women, but to hear Paulo talk about tools and get a little man talk in there, I felt all warm and fuzzy for a minute there. I'm like,
that was like when I was a child. My family was matriarchal in general because my mother had 4 sisters. And so there's the 5 Bono girls, and their mother was kind of the matriarch of the family. And I have 2 sisters, and some of my other cousins came from the same household with 1 boy and 2 girls was my cousins. But my other cousin, one of the other sisters, had 3 boys. My cousin, the Draces. Whenever I went over to the Draces' house, I was like, wow, this is fun. The boys run this place. I always enjoyed going over there.
Did y'all? I can't believe I'm saying this. It's too late. Did you guys have the one house in the neighborhood where nobody wore shirts and the women wore bikini tops? We moved around quite a bit when I was a kid, and there was always one apartment or one trailer or one house down the road where there was a family like that.
But
I'm just saying.
We did not have that house, but I know that house existed, just not in my area. My area was a little too gentrified in the 70s for that, a little too upscale, suburb. You had to move further into the hillbilly New York part to get that. But just today, it went through my head today. My high school is a few miles from here, but my bike route brings me past my high school. And occasionally, and I have a huge high school too. It's like a 3,000 student high school. So the teams are big. And it's just about the time of year that the track team starts running. Because as I'm cycling, I'm noticing, because I'll notice the cross country team runs not in the high school, but on the roads where I'm cycling. Right. So I just happened to notice there was 3, 4, 5 shirtless high school boys running cross country today. I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was shirtless high school boy time today. No one informed me. That thought just went through my head as they were running past me as I was cycling.
I can't believe I don't know what's going on. But what was so funny is that each one of those families, as you get older, they always had a girl. It might have been like a sister or something, and they would run around like in shorts and a bikini top, which you think would be cool being a young boy. But what killed it is they always had Kool-Aid lip. They always had. and when I watch National Lampoon's Vacation, I think of Chevy Chase's cousin's family mixing the Kool-Aid with their hand and all this stuff. I'm like, I know these people. There's one in every neighborhood.
Oh boy.
Kool-Aid. And the other thing I've been reading this week, it's a little bit of a times, kind of as
God forbid we talk about comics again. Sorry.
The Phantom Stranger.
I showed that. I showed that here a couple weeks ago.
I'm only 4 issues in. There's my bookmark. You know what I find so weird? I've never read this before. You guys ever read the early Phantom Strangers?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I've got an older Phantom Stranger series, but I can't remember who did it.
I've had this book for 15 years. This is the first time I'm cracking it. Talk about trades sitting around unread.
I'm trying to think. Jim Aparo and Steve Skeets.
No, that's much later. This is early. The earliest stuff is Mike Friedrich, Jerry Grandinetti, and Leonard Starr drew some of this. Leonard Starr, who's best known as a comic strip artist.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Phantom Stranger. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's the way I remember it, and it's probably the same timeline you're on, Jared. But the Phantom Stranger books, I still have the ones that were in my house. It was individual issues that stood out. They had a cover for one of them, which was like a gothic romance cover. It was all black. There was a girl in a white gown coming down the steps. That was a good issue. Then there was one where there's a monster under a bridge with, doing something to the kids, trying to kidnap them or something. That was a good issue. Overall, I'm not saying it's bad consistently. It's just for some reason, some stories stood out more than others,
No, it's so strange. Yeah, I imagine that's how it's like. I've only read first 4 issues plus I think it was in Showcase. So I've read the first 5 issues. What's so strange about it is the Showcase and the first 3 issues are very sort of old school 60s DC.
Yeah.
They star the Phantom Stranger and this guy called Dr. 13.
Yeah. Dr. 13 is there's no magic in the world. Yeah.
Dr. 13 is the ghost breaker, they call him. And what he does, it's all of them are like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Because there's Dr. 13 is there to prove there's no real magic in the world. It's all fakers.
Right.
And they're broken down into like 2 or 3 stories an issue. And like first something happens and Dr. 13 shows up. Or Phantom Stranger shows up, and they're like, "Oh, this story is going on," and then one of them acts like as a host to another story they tell you.
Yeah,
and then they solve the story they're in. So there's like a lot of stories going on in these issues.
Are you talking about when all the kids were hanging out in the cave and Dr. 13 just happened to show up and it wasn't creepy?
Dr. 13 right?
But it wasn't creepy. Yeah.
It's Scooby-Doo. There is no magic in the world. Dr. 13 is right. He's the and the Phantom Stranger has no superpowers. You can see he just kind of shows up, saves the day, and then disappears when they're not looking. So they're like magician's tricks, Dr. 13. But then the 4th issue, Neil Adams does the artwork, and it's a straight-on superhero book. Dr. 13 was the original myth. It's a straight-up superhero book. Phantom Stranger has superpowers. They introduced this woman who's a supervillain. She's got superpowers. And Dr. 13 shows up and he's nothing but a nag. Because you're like, he's wrong. You can't go around saying there's no such thing as the supernatural in a book where we know there's the supernatural. He's just a nag from then on in.
Dr. 13 is actually the guy that took me from liking the Sandman book to being a Neil Gaiman fan for a while. He was in
Sandman?
No, he did Books of Magic. It was 4 issues where Timothy Hunter showed up and everybody each issue was one of the Trenchcoat Brigade, Constantine, Mr. E, Dr. Occult, and the Phantom Stranger would take him. And Timothy Hunter met Dr. 13 because he had to choose if he wanted to do magic or not. Because if you don't pick now, you won't be able to come back. And Neil Gaiman was clever. He said that, Dr. 13 is absolutely right. There is no magic if you don't believe in it. Dr. 13 doesn't believe. He didn't. And I thought that was clever. I thought that was clever because that's why Dr. 13 can exist and prove there's no magic. It's not real to him.
I've heard that before. I've heard that before. That's a dodge. I never liked that explanation.
It kind of works because it's in the it's in the Constantine episode, and it's Constantine takes Tim to where the magic meets the mundane. So it makes sense for 13 to appear there.
Yeah, it is a dodge if it's not written well. Gaiman wrote it well. That's the difference.
You're right.
That's the difference.
Anything is good if it's written well.
That's what I mean. That's what made me a Gaiman fan, because to me that makes me roll my eyes. I'd heard it before, but Gaiman handled it in a way where I was like, that was pretty good.
He convinced you of it. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
In story.
Right.
Yeah.
Story. I can understand. Like I said, that's conceptually I don't like that because I've always found that a dodge. But yeah, anybody
Legitimately, yeah.
good with talent.
Yeah, legitimately won me over. That's what I'm
Right.
trying. Maybe that's the way I need to put it. Gaiman won me over. I'm like, nice, well done.
I started reading one of those showcase volumes that I had sitting in the shelf for years. The War That Time Forgot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get into because you don't have permanent characters. The island is the character.
Right.
One of those.
Were you reading the 52 stuff or?
No, it's the showcase presents with the original stuff from the 60s. Yeah.
Yeah. I see. I love that stuff. It's almost like when it comes to Silver Age and Bronze Age, I recommend people read anything but the superhero books. That's what's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, that sounds weird. There's stuff I really like, but there's a lot of stuff they can mine from the 60s and 70s, and just leave the superhero stuff alone. The War at Time Forgot was great. Monster Island, the War Wheels, some of the Black Hawk stuff. There's really good stuff out there.
Even Rip Hunter, which is almost a superhero, but not quite.
I was going to mention I'm dying to read some Rip Hunter stuff. I'm like, there's got to be a trade out there. I was going to. Yes.
There was one of those showcase volumes.
Nice.
It's the one I
There's
got.
something Dave McKenzie here says that I want to comment on when he says that 90% of what I've read growing up was Marvel. I think what I liked about the title had a lot to do with the Marvel method as well as building on decades of continuity.
Yeah.
I think so too. One of the things I noticed about these early Phantom Stranger stories, not done full script, of course, is that they were so well constructed. Especially the Leonard Starr stuff.
Yeah.
These guys were such good storytellers, and these stories themselves. Let me see if I can find a page. I mean, the stories themselves are just so well constructed and so well illustrated, but they're boring as all get go.
Flat on the ground. That's why I said there's certain issues that do pop.
Well, when Neil Adams was doing stuff, but it's just so well. I'm looking at you can follow the story perfectly. All the drawings and illustrations are beautifully drawn. I mean, there's nothing that's not clear, and it's just a type of storytelling and drawing that's beautiful, but it's dull. You fall asleep during it. And I think that has to, and I think a lot of that is in modern full script comics too, where it's just beautifully illustrated but dull.
Yeah, I mean the artists. Definitely. I mean, to me, what I've always heard, and like I said, we're going back to where you're in the business, but to me, an artist, to me, the best things, or even when there is a full script, is where you still know that the artist has a job, and part of his job is his way of storytelling, and you got to give him room. Got to give him room to do what he wants there. And still, I know you still want your story to be told. But that's a perfect example of what happens when you don't. The Phantom Strangers, I recommend that showcase because it's so cheap. It's got great art in it. 2 or 3 stories are good, but yeah, it's dull, flat on the ground.
Just looking through it, the art is nice. It's like I said,
it's enough to make you pick up the book.
Wow,
you flip through the book, you'll buy it. If you read it, you're like, you'll never pick it up again.
That's why I read it 2 or 3 pages at a time. I pick it up, I read it like a comic strip.
Yeah. And I don't know why. I think it's where I said Steve Skits, but there's the Bronze Age, Silver Age Aquaman book around issue like 45 to almost 60. That's a great run of books. It's got Dead Man and backups in it by Neil Adams. They were doing some really cool stuff with Aquaman, like he shrunk down and found a whole world inside of Mira's ring that Grant Morrison did about a year ago with Green Lantern. I was like, did he read that story? He had him go inside the ring, and that was already done in Aquaman. And Grant Morrison's a big Silver Age fan, so when I read some of his stuff, that's what keeps those Silver Age stories on top of my head. Sometimes, like I read this when I was 12.
The Silver Age.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I'm kind of I don't know. I'm starting to get nostalgic and a little bit angry about like how bad books are now. Now that we're talking about the tools and these trades and things that stayed in print for 30 years because they're good, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean?
There are plenty of good books out there, just not Marvel and DC, according to me.
That's what I've been saying for the last 25 years.
Me too. I hear people complain that Marvel and DC aren't good. I'm like, but there's tons of other stuff out there.
A lot of people are stuck on the paradigm. They really don't want to try other stuff. And no matter how much we push them.
Right. They want Marvel. And you know what it is? I notice a lot of people who complain that Marvel and DC aren't good anymore. They don't really want good comics. They want the comics they loved when they were 14. That's what they want.
Yeah.
When I point out there's tons of good comics you could be reading, it doesn't even penetrate. It's like, no, I want to be 14 years old and reading Spider-Man. It's like, you're not 14.
I don't know.
You've moved on, and so has Spider-Man. I'm not saying there's not good comics out there, but I don't think Marvel's been making good comics for 30 years. A lot of the comics that people love from when they were 15, I didn't love because I was 25.
Well, one of the death marks in people's minds when Marvel actually did end, the proper Marvel was Infinity Gauntlet, when everybody died and then everybody came back and it made death meaningless again. And you're hitting around that era that you're saying over 30 years. That's also around the time. Yeah. I
grew up, Bronze Age baby. I consider, though I bought comics in the early 70s, I consider Hulk 200 in 76 and to 75 to be when I started collecting them. So, my most formative years between, like, say, 10 and 14 were 76 to 79. And all I heard from older collectors is how comics sucked these days. Wow. All the good the comics were a lot better when they were buying them in the Silver Age. That was my growing up listening to older collectors. And those we still got, guys telling, who were the 20-year-old guys telling you now how comics sucked because they're not as good as they were when they were 15. I'm like,
we got something here with European comics. We got this. I know people. I'm not buying any of those new series, but they reprint the entirety of the Corto Maltese series by Hugo Pratt in a newspaper collection. I have to buy that, even though they already have a full Hugo Pratt Corto Maltese collection from the previous publisher.
Well, to me, you catch me at the right time. I'm not so life and death about it anymore because I'm not looking for that YouTube drama pop for a video. But a couple years ago, Tom Bagley's little comment here reminded me what I did a couple years ago. We'll say 2014. I took a modern the comic that came out that month for Justice League, and I randomly picked up a Justice League comic book from 1980, and I compared both of them. Right. I had people kind of respond to that video, and some people that didn't believe what I was saying as they were doing their video, they convinced themselves when they did the same thing with two other books. So I can totally get that a lot of people want comic books the way they did, but what I did was like, I didn't say that they sucked. I kind of showed what you got in the book compared to what they were doing.
They are different. And I think, as I said before, I think a lot of modern comics are too esoteric. You have to know things in order to understand the comic. And I really think that's a problem. You don't even have to know. All it would take to fix this comic to make it less esoteric is a few captions.
Yeah.
That's all it would take.
Or maybe just a page, like here's what happened.
Not even a page. All you have to do is inform people that this scene takes place 15 years before this scene. That's all. There's no indication that this scene takes place 15 years later. There's none.
Even from the art. I mean, it's 15 years earlier and the characters don't look younger.
It's a completely different set of characters.
Okay.
People have used flashbacks without using the caption, but the storytelling gives you something that indicates that it's a flashback. I get what he's saying. Some people can just tell the story where it flows back and forth and you get the rhythm, but they use color. They'll use something visual to let you know. The colors of vintage color. Everything's one color. Everything's grays. There's something in the psychology of reading that clicks in your head like, oh, it's a flashback. TV shows used to do the waves. We all know that from Wayne's World. Anything. There should be anything. Yeah.
I don't even think the color is necessarily a good idea unless you inform people. That's what like Beto in Love and Rockets he uses flashbacks a lot. And like the beginning, or he puts like an editor's note in, double line around the panel indicates flashback. He'll give you that note somewhere. When
you get a chance, you got a question here.
What was that? Are there any current indies, in your opinion, might satisfy nostalgic? No. I think if you're nostalgic for 70s or 80s Marvel, you want 70s and 80s Marvel. There's nothing. Nostalgia is nostalgia. There's no substitute for nostalgia. Nostalgia means I want to go back in time and read these issues in their time. There's just no. There's good, like Invincible, which has ended. I'm rereading now. That's a solid superhero story, but it's a modern one. But it's as solid as a 70s or 80s superhero story. There's no shortcuts in it.
The last book that I read that almost might talk about David here, but I thought it was a failure of a book, and I just decided that I'm not the audience for that book. But it was Paper Girls. But it was Paper Girls started out in the 80s, and it turned into some weird warping. It felt like he was making it up off his id as he went along, making it up as he went along. It's like almost like Paper Girls felt like, okay, this is 1987. I'll write to make it feel like 87, and then he took them out.
Paper Girl had general 80s nostalgia in it, but it not nostalgia comics. It wasn't about 80s comics. It was about general 80s nostalgia was in it because that was its starting point.
Yeah, I actually thought a little bit about nostalgia because I ended up watching the step kid was over, and he was watching something called The Regular Show, and people had told me I need to watch it if I was an 80s kid, and they ended up playing Loverboy in an episode, and they were playing video games and stuff, and I found it very annoying. Like it was just too on the nose, trying to be something it's not. So nostalgia is not always good,
No, it's just
so when they do that nostalgia, they give you all the references at the same time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's like the quote, "Nostalgia ain't what it used to be."
Yeah. To me, if I want nostalgia, I go watch Keanu Reeves, one of his first movies called By the River's Edge, because we were those kids. It's a cheap movie. They're wearing their blue jeans and denim, walking around listening to metal, and it doesn't try to be 80s. And I'm like, that's how you get nostalgia. You go back and watch something that's from that time.
Like I said, that's why I don't have any comics to recommend that'll capture that 70s or 80s nostalgia. You got to go back and read 70s and 80s Marvel and DC.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I get people trying. Stranger Things season 1 was fantastic. By the time they got to season 3, they made the 80s a character of its own, and that's why I was like, "Oh, the magic's gone." Still a good show, but that first season.
But they're fine.
Yeah. Well, guys, we've gone an hour and 12 minutes, and I'm out of topics unless anybody else got anything else.
Oh, we got time. We can keep going.
Okay. That's cool.
Well,
you guys keep going. I'm going to make this one last phone call because it seems like if I do this during the day, the first of the month, warrant calls, people aren't getting their benefits in their bank account for some reason. Like I can do something today. I want to make a phone call, guys, and be right back.
We'll talk amongst ourselves then.
I've talked to Paolo about this. I don't know if Jared or Tim have heard about it, but one thing that is bugging the hell out of me lately is I'll see online scans of older comics anywhere from the 40s up through maybe even in some cases in the 70s and 80s. The amount of yellow that colorists used is insane.
What is wrong with you and yellow?
I don't know. It's just, it drives me crazy to see
I think
a
you
random.
don't like yellow.
It's my least favorite color, but
I have no least favorite color.
Well,
I'm not going to notice the amount of yellow in old.
It just seems like a default that happens, especially if an artist didn't draw the background.
What it might be is in old printing, they didn't have many shades of yellow.
That is part of it because
so you might have
it's the saturated 100% yellow that I don't
5 or 6 shades of red and 2 shades of yellow.
Yeah, because I I did see a panel the other day. Laverne Kinders, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Begins with a K. Did of a P. Craig Russell piece, and it's like, yes, he knows how to use yellow. Okay,
right.
And it's different shades, things like that. But it's just, have you ever seen a yellow sky?
Yes, in Disney comics made in Europe.
Now,
I've also seen pink skies.
No, it's
green,
funny you mentioned
orange
that.
skies.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull a random old comic from my shelf.
Okay.
And just see how much yellow is.
Because in the Disney comics, that doesn't bother me. But also another thing with older comics too, especially war comics, in one panel you'll have a completely yellow sky. In the next panel, the sky will be completely red. There's no consistency there. You know. I
think there's supposed to be a consistency to make your brain move with the image.
Maybe. It's just some of the coloring is just, and now I can't unsee it anymore, and it drives me crazy.
Justice League of America, number 102. Now, is there too much yellow on this cover for you? They made the bullet yellow.
No, that doesn't bother me.
Okay, let me open and see. Normal
there's a yellow sky.
Splash page. Well, the two blondes on this page, so they got to use yellow.
Too much purple. Yeah.
Too much purple. Purple backgrounds. Lots of yellow in the background of the ad.
Well, yeah, that's true. Lots of times you also see text boxes that'll be colored yellow too, and that's
no yellow on this
that doesn't
page.
really bother me either.
Just normal light colored background.
Yeah, see that one's not. That one's not so bad. Yeah.
Some yellow energy lines in the background of this one.
Yeah,
and all the sky is pink here.
Yeah, I don't like the pink. I don't like the pink sky, but that's just me.
The problem is that the sky is pink in every panel on that page.
Well, at least they're consistent with it.
Yellow
but it's not supposed to be consistent.
But there's only one page so far with yellow backgrounds.
Yeah.
I think you just notice the yellow backgrounds more than the other backgrounds. No yellow backgrounds there. No yellow backgrounds there. No yellow background. Regular old.
Yeah, I mean that one's not so bad.
I think you're orange backgrounds.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is,
almost
if
yellow.
you have a lot of blue, if you have a lot of blue on the characters and the objects, you can't have a blue background.
Yeah, there's the yellow background up top.
Yeah.
I think you just. I don't think there's. Oh, here's some more yellow backgrounds.
I'm just. Yeah, I'm not a fan of dark. I'm not
that last panel. I would not have used yellow because there's a lot of brown and orange there.
I'm also just not a fan of having a panel where they just didn't draw in the background. I mean, if it's
it depends on what you want to get attention.
Stylistic choice, that's one thing.
I don't think there was an especially a lot amount of yellow.
Not
I mean, they didn't even. They still didn't. DC in 1972 still wasn't crediting colorists.
All right. In some cases, they weren't crediting, artists either or writers in some of the backup stories.
Hey guys, I heard some of the conversation talking about the color yellow and more stuff. To me,
I'm really beginning to hate yellow.
Well, this goes back to the toolbox, right? I can get to Joe Kubert, Tarzan. In the first book, he tells the origin of Tarzan. And Joe Kubert did the style where each page actually was its own little story, and it had a little climax. And the color yellow or red was used in the background when something happened to climax the story, like when the gorilla is swinging from a vine and her baby falls. The whole panel is yellow or red. I can't remember which one, and it stands out, and that enhances that moment. This is the kind of stuff I talk about in comics that's missing. Even knowing how to use colors to make something pop out, like that's an important event. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to me, when you have a strong color like yellow or red that you're not offsetting on the color wheel, you know what I mean? With another color, you got to have I can't remember what it is. Anyway, you got to have the opposite color in there to balance it off. You got to cool it off a little bit. Too much red, bring down a little blue.
Yeah, I think Scott just doesn't like yellow, so he notices.
The next time I see an example of that, I'll send it to you, and you may start seeing. Hey, here's what I mean. How many people in their houses have yellow ceilings?
It's a depressing color. It psychologically depresses you. The color yellow will depress you, but
yellow makes you hungry.
And hungry. Yeah,
dude, everything makes me hungry. It's not just
I like bananas. I like yellow.
Here, get out Paper Girls #1. That's an entirely yellow cover. I hate that book, and that I'm gonna agree with Scott on that one. You know, I can pull out the yellow cover of Paper Girls and be like, look how crappy that looks. You know,
I don't remember liking the covers on that. It's funny. There are so few covers I like these days. I'm trying to think.
I got the greatest comic book cover ever. Wait a minute.
What's the greatest comic book cover ever?
I have an opinion, but it's.
What's your opinion? What's the greatest comic book cover ever?
For me, it's going to be the cover of Xenozoic Tales #13 by Mark Schultz.
I don't know that one. I've always wanted to buy some Xenozoic Tales, but I never have. Oh my
god, the rendering in those last 3 issues. Yeah. This is a very bold statement, but I'll back it up. He is doing Frazetta quality work in those books.
Oh yeah, he really. I don't know why that one never got on my pull list, but it never did.
There is literally nobody else in the industry that renders like he does.
What does he do? I mean, I haven't seen anything by him in so long.
Well, he's writing the Sunday Prince Valiant strip. Okay. Tom Yates right now is doing the art on it. He's been doing a lot of commissions. He did a book a few years ago called Storms at Sea.
Did he have a career other than comic books?
Not that you would know of, no.
That's his main illustrations on those reprints of the Robert E. Howard Conan stories.
Okay, so
that's true.
Did he do a lot of book illustration and stuff like that?
Not a lot, but he's done some over the years.
There's not a lot of issues of Xenozoic Tales, is there?
No, there's 13.
Yeah.
There's 13 or 14. I can't remember which.
There's 14 and one story which appeared in an anthology. And the story doesn't end. And he was supposed to finish the story a couple of years ago, and it didn't.
It's coming. He's working on it as we speak. As a matter of fact, Flesh Publications, his current publisher, has a Kickstarter that's going to do just in a couple days. That'll have a new art book by him.
You have the Flesh compilation, really big.
One of my favorite cartoonists, Seth, who did Clyde Fans, but it took him 20 years to get out.
Right.
You know, but I also know he does a lot of illustration work. That's kind of what his real career is, and where I think he makes his money. Yeah. So I was wondering if Mark Schultz was like that too.
I think Mark has probably made I could be wrong, but he's probably made the majority of his money over the past few years, both in writing and doing commissions.
Okay. Well, I know that for the last few, but what about the last 30 years? Yeah, I mean, I imagine he's making a living on 12 issues of Xenozoic Tales.
No, but he's been doing writing. He also teaches the occasional art class down at SCAD down in Savannah. Okay.
Who does he write? Where does he write?
Well, he's writing the Sunday Prince Valiant strip.
Yeah, I know, but what has he written over the years?
He's actually written some different miniseries. He's written a few prose novels. Okay. Yeah, that's what Tommy Bagley just said. Yeah, they dumped the Cadillacs and dinosaurs because they didn't figure people would know what the hell Xenozoic was. But,
and they had to pay General Motors to use that title.
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm. What were you bringing us, Tim?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where, like, I could do a whole video explaining why I think this is the greatest cover, but I go back and forth with two of them. One's just because it pops and it's all pop art and stuff, but it's this one. It's a Challengers of the Unknown cover. And what got me thinking about it is when we were talking about the colors and the offset and things, you got this green background that sets up this morbid little melancholy tone here. And then you got the yellow outfits, the Challengers, but then we get into some perspective and art techniques and framing with that noose. to me, this sets a mood. I mean, when you consider when this came out, I think in the 60s this came out, that's a pretty powerful image. Very little bit taboo almost without realizing it. You know, and that's a Kubert.
In my blog, I used to analyze covers, right? Take one cover and analyze it. And
nice.
I haven't done that in a few years.
There's a clap.
Yeah, and this one's signed by Steranko. I think Scott and I were at Heroes Con. I'm not sure when I got this one signed. But this cover here is just freaking iconic with what Straczynski did to it. To me, it holds up. It's both innovative and it still gives you that 60s nostalgia feel at the same time. It's almost like a contradiction. Everything on this cover is just James Bond, pop art, Andy Warhol, comic book stuff. You know, it's an era. It's of its era, but at the same time, they still make mock-ups of this cover. I've got 5 or 6 books over here where in the last 10 years they've done a Wolverine and an Iron Man and all that stuff. They still go back to this thing. My
favorite Shield cover is the one he did, which is like a Wally Wood tribute, where he's in a spacesuit in front of an exploding planet.
Oh yeah. I have also figured out, you know, why that one gets homaged so much as well as others is because it's easy to homage. Certain covers with like one figure on them and a bunch of stuff behind it are easier to do than like a complex battle scene. Like that, the one you just showed us, the Challenges the Unknown.
Yeah.
You're not going to homage that too much because not only is it's a little difficult to pull off that perspective, it's very specific too.
Yeah.
But the Steranko cover, which is just one guy standing there, you can pull that off easily, copying it.
Plus, the geometric figures are
they're not hard to do.
Yeah, they're not hard to do, right?
And it's like, can you imagine trying to copy the mood of that Challengers of the Unknown cover? That'd be tough.
Yeah. See, this question cracks me up here. Who had the worst costumes in 60s EC to Challengers of the Blackhawks? I don't think either one of their costumes was really bad. I think you got to get into the 70s where you have Angard the Screamer and Aquarius and Captain Ultra. You know,
Batroc.
Didn't the Blackhawks have some new mod costumes in the late 60s or something?
I don't know. There's a gap there because I remember Mark Evanier being in the book in the early 80s and it just sat there on the stands with Sergeant Rock. Like you would go back and they would just pile up. It seems like they had like a red and blue costume or something. I don't know.
They wore their leather for the longest time, but I think there were some wacky mod costumes they had in the 60s.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure of that.
Yeah, the only thing I ever hear about Blackhawks is I do know some people that collect that stuff, but they always go back to like Will Eisner touched them for like, I don't know, 5 minutes or something. I don't know. Right. My Blackhawks history is just not there yet. They've ended up in cartoons and everything. You know, I don't know. Blackhawks is definitely a mystery to me.
I never cared much. Only the chicken in the series had some impact over here.
I get the feeling, I may be wrong, but I had this problem with some of the other things that Chaykin has done. I get the feeling that if I went back and liked the Blackhawks and read it, that I may hate what Chaykin later on did with them. He just seems to have this knack of taking character. He did, especially with the shadows. I hated his shadow material.
He removes the innocence.
I hated it.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Well, removing the innocence is one thing. I just think he's not true to the spirit of the character.
Yeah, Evanier and Spiegel's Blackhawk was pretty cool. I remember buying that in the early 80s.
Awesome.
Tommy Bagley says, I heard Steranko introduced over 150 storytelling techniques to comics that weren't there previously. I'm not sure about that, but he certainly added graphic design techniques into it. Just visual graphic design techniques that were common in sort of graphic design and illustration.
There's actually a list in some article.
Yeah, there's an article somewhere that goes into gory detail about each one of these things.
Yeah. I also saw an article that said that it wasn't until 2010 that Shang-Chi looked like Bruce Lee. So I don't really trust a lot of these articles.
No, this article was from the 80s when they actually, had a little bit of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, a little integrity, I guess. I don't know. They backed it up with facts. They actually showed the technique and everything. They made a list and showed them.
Right.
Because there's not a lot that Will Eisner didn't do. And Kirby.
Yeah.
Well,
Steranko always brings up the Zipatone.
Yeah. My greatest thing was the fact that Steranko, and I think he was on Twitter, and it turns out he was like a vice president of an ad agency or something while he was doing those comics, and he was doing playing in a rock band. I didn't know about the second job. So
Right.
this guy was pretty much
he was kind of a Renaissance guy in terms of having a lot of different things going on at one time.
Shaking what he did with the Shadow was enjoyed.
I hated it.
Lord, you're weird.
Shadow.
I tell you what, I love in the last couple months this big Howard Chaykin renaissance or whatever it is. People talking a lot about him. Now, Charleston 66 is a Chaykin fan from way back, and he is really one of the few actual comic book collectors I've heard that consistently has talked about Chaykin. And the last year, he's popped up on some YouTube videos, some interviews. He made that article over his image book he put out a few years ago, and all this stuff.
He's not shy.
Yeah. So it blows my mind that somebody like Howard Chaykin has been talked about more in 6 months, at least online, than he did for 20 years. To be honest with you, It just kind of shows. It just kind of shows that a lot of people either were fans to begin with, or they're starting to mine comics and stuff, and they're discovering them for the first time. Is what it feels like.
Right.
I don't know when the next volume of his Hey Kids comics is coming out, though, because he's finished it.
Don't know.
But I don't know when it's going to be published. That's weird.
I wouldn't be surprised if Image isn't interested.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how much. I'm sure it didn't sell a ton.
But they keep bringing it up. I mean,
I really like it. I really enjoyed Hey Kids comics, but it also suffers from the same thing I was saying about. It switches between 3 timelines and doesn't tell you. You're just supposed to figure it out visually, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is in vogue now.
I don't know, but it definitely runs all over you. It runs all over. I mean, you can look in your face and you can see you're bothered. I mean, like
it's baffling to me because I think one of the problems we really have with comics is they're too esoteric. They're not clear enough, and it's a simple thing to clear up. And I don't know. And it just baffles me that people aren't.
Mm-hmm. I kind of think there's moments in comics that are missing where you get to know the character a little bit and you get a breather between what's going on with the story. And I mean, I know I always seem to go back to Starman here lately, but there's 2 scenes in Starman that have stuck out with me where he's just talking. And one is where he's getting a haircut, just a simple haircut, and he's talking. Correct. The second one is where he comes back from space. He's got a whole new body. He's replacing his tattoo. And he and the tattoo artist are talking about the legacy of Starman. And it's almost like you're watching therapy. You're getting to know Jack. You're seeing how Jack's changed. There's little moments like that are missing. Now, that's what drives me nuts when people don't slow down the story a little bit and have some characterization. As bad as it bothers you when people go back and forth and don't give you establishing moments to know where you're at.
They used to take care of that with a caption in comics for 40 years. Right. And now there are no how did that? I just don't understand how it falls. So I actually understand to an extent how thought balloons fell out of favor, because when non-comic people would make fun of comics, they'd make fun of the thought balloons for whatever reason. That they'd make fun of the sound effects and the thought balloons were the 2 things.
See,
a lot of people stopped using sound effects.
Well, when it comes to the Muggles, there's things I can totally get, but I was forgiving because, I like comic books. To me, when I read comics, these things were there, but I thought some things were silly. Spider-Man running his mouth and having completely different thoughts and stuff while he's in a fight. It took me a little bit to forgive that, because if you go back and read some of those things, you're like, how is he fighting? I think Daredevil did a little bit. I mean, the more I think, the more I'll come up with stuff. But
they're not compressed time. That's all that is.
But then you'd have somebody like Gene Colan, who would be on Daredevil. And Gene Colan apparently was in a couple fights. That's why he would draw a fight where it was like a mess and there wasn't any talking going on or thinking.
Right.
When you're in a fight, you're rolling around and it's like a car wreck. It's just, and that's what he was trying to do. It's just, to me, it's like anything somebody can bring up about comics to make fun of it. You can pull out something that, okay, you might be right, but here's somebody that did it the way you would like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There used to be so much out there.
But that doesn't work when someone's making fun of something. Reason, especially because the person doesn't want to read comics in the first place.
Here's something I'm curious about too. When they're making fun of comics and they're using those certain tropes, how much of that came from them just knowing nothing about comics except the 1966 Batman TV series?
There you go. That's probably a lot of it. That's why they immediately start reading the sound effects, because that's what they know.
See, and this is where as soon as I figure out somebody doesn't really know what they're talking about, and it's something like what Scott's talking about, this is what they know, you end up having a completely different conversation, and I just kind of leave them alone. I've always had the attitude, you're the one missing out because you didn't give it a chance. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, I think that making fun of led to the disappearance of thought balloons and the rise of narration. Because once narration became cooler to do than thought balloons. No one could make fun of your narration, even when it was terrible.
Right.
There's a lot fewer thought balloons in European comics as well, so it's not just the normies not understanding it. I do see that it's maybe there's a lot of people coming into comics from movies instead of from literature, and they really don't understand how to use these tools.
I think thought balloons were gone before the TV. The TV people really moved in the early 2000s. I think thought balloons were gone before then.
I think this conversation Paula just nailed with people having a toolbox and not knowing how to use it and stuff.
Yeah. What Tommy just said, I think writers use thought balloon captions as the exposition dumps. I think that may have something to do.
But that's not a problem. That's a good place to have exposition.
Right. I think that has to do with, like, that's why we don't get Meanwhile 10 years ago in one of these. I think some writers reacted against that so much that they're like, well, I'm giving them no exposition.
Yeah.
They went to another extreme. They saw the extreme of too much exposition and went, I don't want to do that. Right. You're giving them no exposition. They can figure it out.
Or also,
cool
the comics they grew up reading didn't have that either, so they may not even be aware of it.
No. Every comic had Meanwhile back at the ranch. It's a cliche.
Yeah, from a porn. But I learned that in the military. But
what's that, Lassie? Timmy fell down the well?
Lassie. I've heard, like, I haven't heard that one before. But I always go back to showing off two writers with what we're talking about. Steve Gerber and Chris Claremont going way back for some people. You know what I mean? Steve Gerber, I mean, you get some of his stuff. You're reading that book all the way up until the next one comes out with some of his stuff he did, and it worked. You had somebody like with Chris Claremont, and there were moments where, and don't get me wrong, I like Chris Claremont, but there's times where you were wondering if he was getting paid by the word, you know?
Yeah, I haven't liked Claremont in a long, long time, so.
I'm not gonna down the man, but
I just haven't read.
It's a critique. It's a critique. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I can't even critique him because I haven't read him in so long. I mean, I grew up and I grew up on his and Burns X-Men and loved it. But by the time I stopped writing the X-Men, I was burnt out on his writing, and I just don't think I've read anything by him since then. But that's also because I don't read mainstream superhero stuff, and that's what he writes. Right.
A couple months ago, I dug out I didn't realize how beat up my X-Men collection is, right? So I pulled out some Paul Smith stuff, the stuff with the Brood, and I was going to go back and read the Morlock stuff, and I was like, dear God, this is going to take me years. So I was like, I put it back up. I was like, oh.
It's amazing how old stuff is now, because it's like I must be 15 years ago now when I replaced all of my Omega the Unknowns. Well, I still have my original Omega the Unknowns with mint condition cheapo mint condition copies there were at the time, because that was one of my favorite series as a kid. And I was like, oh, let me look at those. I want to pull them out. And I pulled them out, and in my mind, they're fresh and new. because that's how I got them. But looking at my copies, they were old and battered and yellow, and I'm like, this isn't how I remember them. I don't want these ones.
Right.
So I ordered some mid-edition ones. Oh yeah, this is how I remember them looking.
Well, where I'm cataloging my comics, I'm pulling out stuff that's still mint, and it's the crappy comics I read one time and put up. And the stuff I loved and I pulled out, that's the stuff going downhill. Right. And I knew this years ago. But with add 15 more years to it, and you can really see it. And I'm like, damn it. Damn.
That stuff is really crappy.
But yeah, 66 now are big Omega the Unknown fans. That was a Vertigo book 20 years before there was a Vertigo. I'm
going to have to forward this to you. I have it still somewhere. I did taking a look at appreciation of Omega the Unknown on my YouTube channel. And like 2 years after I did it, some random guy sent me an email who's a huge Omega the Unknown fan and went through all this stuff I had never heard about Omega the Unknown. Behind the scenes stuff. Did this really mean this? Reading into it more than even I ever have. I was just like, wow, that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that.
But deeper into Omega Unknown than I have.
It's one of the few series that I can actually say I got a little bit more out of it the second time going through it than the first. You know what I mean? The first I'm not going to try not to go into the Omega Unknown thing, but the first one, he had two characters that really were the opposites of what you would find in comic books, the two females in it. And one was like, she was of the 70s, and this is how 70s girls really were. I mean, I could see her hanging out on a roof somewhere. As a kid in the 70s, you would be walking around, and all of a sudden you'd see two girls on top of their house sunbathing. 70s were cool, man. I mean, around here,
Omega the Unknown also, because I first got it as a kid, but I didn't buy it off the stands. It's funny when I see a book and realize it's 30 years old. How did I age and I didn't? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Tell me about
it. My mind, I'm still 20. But I got like Omega the Unknown as a kid, but I didn't buy it off the stands. I got it around the neighborhood. So to me, it was always one series, 12 or 13 issues. I can't remember. But besides liking the series, it also gave me insight into how comic books were made. Because I was reading it all at once, I could see like around issue 5, they changed direction in it. So obviously something wasn't working sales-wise. And then near the end, all of a sudden they had a different writer on it for like 1 or 2 issues. So obviously something was going on behind the scenes where they had to change the writer. And then the writer came back and like finished it up. The Gerber came back and finished it up, or left it unfinished. But I was like, it gave me an interesting look behind the scenes of the comic too. I was like, oh, there's something going on behind the scenes that I don't know about. I wonder what it is. So that gave me insight that there was stuff going on with the people behind the scenes that affected the actual comic.
I think it was one of two people, and I feel horrible if I'm wrong. I think Charlton 66 actually sent me the trade. I might have read an issue here or there growing up, and then I didn't really get into Omega for like the last 10 years. So I had this thing where I read it, and the thing is so set in the 70s. I had a completely different read the first time when I was reading it. I felt like it was so well written, and it felt like New York was real. Steve Gerber really came off to me like he hated New York. And he wrote it and read it, and I'm like, my God, this is a Vertigo book. I felt like I picked up something out of Vertigo in the 90s. You know what I mean? So it's just a great read. You can pick it up, and it still works. It's almost like a time machine that takes you to a different time, but it's not dated, Right. So, and for it to have all those layers and to be deep, I can't wait to read whatever you're sending me.
And Tom, I think Steve Grant. Well, mine says,
"Where are you?" Yeah, to get caught up on stuff like that. This one, is this what you're reading?
Yeah, that was. I think Steve Grant was signed to conclude Omega. They plugged it into the vendors. Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible ending.
I've got those on the shelf here. Yeah.
It was just boom. It was so. Yeah, I didn't like it at all finishing up, and I was just by that point I knew it wasn't the same guys finishing up. I knew it wasn't going to be the same story, and I don't even remember the ending anymore. There's some robots on another planet. There was nothing particular interesting about the ending.
Well, like I said, we got the Gerber issues in there, and the book it's a thick read. If you read it issue by issue, you might as well just sit down and be prepared to sit, because there's a lot in those books. And I don't know, the quality that Steve did to it, even though we didn't get our ending and all that stuff. I bet somewhere out there on the internet could be the real ending that Gerber had.
Yeah, who knows? Though of the 70s stuff, my favorite Steve Gerber, maybe thing that was whole beginning to end, was his Guardians of the Galaxy with Al Milgrom.
Yeah, I have those. Yeah,
that I think that's my favorite Steve Gerber piece. Like Omega might be my favorite Steve Gerber unfinished piece. Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of my favorite Steve Gerber finished piece. Let's call it.
My favorite Gerber stuff, and it's because it was in my house, is one issue of that Marvel Presents or Premiere or whatever it was, where the Guardians of the Galaxy were in there, where they landed on a planet that looked just like 70s New York, and it turned out to be Asylum.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, Steve Gerber hates New York, because the aliens said we didn't do it. The inmates made it look like that. And the second one was his underrated with the writing Kiss special that he did, that Kiss magazine that he did. That is some really good sci-fi superhero stuff when you go back and read it. And I think that book about killed him. That's why I'm reading this issue of Howard the Duck, where he talks about how his workload in doing that Kiss magazine special about killed him, with everything he was doing.
This is why there's Guardians of the Galaxy in 3 volumes.
I've got them on the shelf over here, but there's a
this
story in there where Stan Lee and John Buscema wrote some pages of Silver Surfer that the Guardians of the Galaxy were looking at. Yeah. So there's Stan Lee's Silver Surfer in one of those issues.
Surfer.
The thing is, Gerber used to be late all the time, and he was late on a couple of issues of Omega the Unknown, and then there was when he left Marvel, he may have left the story unfinished without even actually having done a script.
Right. This is the Defenders and Marvel 2-in-1 Guardians of the Galaxy. This is solid Marvel 70s stuff.
I don't know if I got that.
But this is the good stuff right here. The Power of Starhawk.
Mm-hmm.
This is some of Al Milgrom's best artwork.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Marvel Presents.
Man, those stories are so good, man. And I'm not even talking the nostalgia factor we were talking about. Those are just really good.
And I believe there's one story in here that is Bob Wyachek's first work for Marvel. He inked Al Milgrom.
But that definitely is like 9 issues that were hitting on all gears. I think that's how many he did.
Here's the dreaded Deadline Doom one, where they just reprinted an issue of Silver Surfer in Guardians of the Galaxies with a framing sequence of the Silver Surfer.
Is it reprinted or is it new stuff? I thought it was new stuff.
Well, the framing sequence is new.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 pages.
A reprint of the Silver Surfer.
It is a reprint. Okay.
This is like Silver Surfer number 6 or something.
Oh, man. All these years, I've been like, there's some new Stan Lee.
No, that's not new.
Man.
That's a reprint of the series that they just because it had to do with the Badoon.
Yeah, it represents the first appearance of the Badoon, because I love that Silver Surfer story, because it has the Silver Surfer finally finds a friend. He's a scientist, and then he dies, sacrificing himself.
Paulo took me up with the man talk about the toolbox, and then I find this up. This is a roller coaster ride for me. This is a roller coaster ride.
I love this imagery here of this giant in space who's cuffed by 2 suns. And I think he eventually has to have sex with a giant space woman to free him or something.
I hate it when that happens.
There's some great imagery in here.
You don't know where she's been. She's been all around the galaxy. There's nobody keeping an eye on her.
Oh, look, this issue is Milgrom and Howard Chaykin. I didn't realize.
Nice.
Was inking.
I always thank Gerber for getting me into lesser-known villains like the Wrecking Crew, Thog, Dr. Angst. Wasn't Gerber the one that brought out the Full Killer and definitely Elf with a Gun.
Yeah, the Gerber elf.
I do not remember Elf with a Gun.
Elf with the Gun is freaking awesome.
I
He's
don't
just an
remember that.
elf. He's an elf that pops up here and there, and he's got a gun, and he's not afraid to use it.
They call him the Gerber elf. He was in the Defenders. And they'd have a subplot every few issues where like the elf would show up like in a gas station and murder someone in the bathroom. And that was it. And then after like 3 or 4 appearances, they had another one where the elf shows up to murder someone and he gets hit by a car. And that's the end of it. Until like 5
that was the
later.
Mateus.
Now, this right here, Eric Larson worked with Gerber on Dragon Destroyer Duck, and he said Gerber slaved more over working on one issue of a story than the other writer he'd worked with. What was interesting about this story, maybe I'm thinking Savage Dragon. Yeah, Savage Dragon Destroyer Duck. But what they did is that there was a Marvel team-up book, and it was in the 90s where it had Gambit in it. I can never find this book, but Howard the Duck and Gambit were in it. And then when they did that Destroyer Duck Savage Dragon book, which I have that one, they did a thing where if you put the books together, you figure out it's the same story from different perspectives. And he ends up kidnapping. This isn't brand new news. People talked about it for years, but he gets one of the characters. There's a bunch of clone ducks in this factory, this building, and they grab the real Howard the Duck and they pull him out in the Destroyer Duck crossover, and they dye his feathers black. And now he's like, he's left a clone behind. Steve Gerber reclaimed Howard the Duck and renamed him.
But there is the last page of the Steve Gerber, Al Milgrom star. So I guess they kind of got to end it. I guess they knew the last issue was good. That's why I consider this one like a finished work.
It's fantastic.
Make unknown where.
See, and I've been a Yondu fan since a Thor annual I read when I was like 5. So to see Yondu, even though it's not really Yondu in a Marvel movie, blew me away. You know, seeing him whistle and use that arrow just blew my mind. I never thought as a kid I'd get to see that. But Yondu was my favorite one in the whole thing.
And check out that double page spread. This is just Al Milgrom's best stuff. Just a lot of
the
fun.
thing is, Al Milgrom never had anything as spectacular as what he did in that Guardians. It's like he took a lot of risks there, and after that, plateau.
Yeah. A matter of fact, this might be the only really good Al Milgrom stuff. Everything else is just okay at best.
Yeah, I mean, he's running Avengers with Roger Stern. The art looks good because Joe Sinnott is inking it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I get what you're saying there. Some of that stuff, I was like, oh my God. I
mean, the storytelling's not bad, but it's Sinnott that's giving the art the depth that it needs.
What is wild is Al Milgrom has a story that not a lot of people remember that I thought was like his best work, and it was in that weekly Marvel book in '89, Marvel Comics Presents, and it was all about this squiggly, ugly little alien that was a parasite, and it would go around and it would feed on fear with all these heroes. And it was a weekly story, and it ends, of course, it was too dead on the nose the way it ended, but he tried to jump into Daredevil, the man without fear, and died. I like this comment here. Elf with a Gun is a Thanos tier villain in my eyes. He has not been hired by the Masters of Evil in the Vicious Circle. It's a mystery.
I wish I could remember where someone tried to finish up that Gerber Elf story. I know it happened, but I have no idea where or what happened, but somebody brought it out.
Bizarro by Steve Gerber is hilarious. About the Bizarro, not a Bizarro, Al Bizarro. I wish Gerber had more fun like that he did in the miniseries. Gerber had a lot of books come out under Vertigo, and the one I'm wanting to check out is Nevada. It came out of his prose work in this Howard the Duck I got. We talked about it.
Yeah, I remember seeing ads for that.
Yeah. It's a showgirl in an ostrich. Yeah, and it came out of this Howard the Duck book. I mean, I learned this the last couple weeks.
I can't remember if I read that or just saw the ad. It's been so long.
I wished I picked it up now because I remember seeing it in the comic book shop in the 90s, but I just shook my head. I'm like, it's an ostrich, man. I'm like,
I probably haven't even thought about that until you just mentioned it. And then that ad pops up in my head. It's like,
yeah. I know that I didn't read it, but that ad it really pulls you in.
That just makes me think. What's the last comic book ad that pulled you in?
Believe it or not, it was probably either the George Perez, Jeff Johns Legion of Three Worlds. That ad was kind of cool.
Okay.
And I actually keep a little box here of my favorite covers with some of my ads on there. But it was probably this ad that was on the bunch of a back of books announcing Walt Simonson, John Buscema, and Tom Palmer on Avengers. They're just standing sort of like stacked, and it's real melancholy, and it's got a moon behind them. It's a real somber pose on the back of an ad. That's the one that pops in my head.
I can't think of any current ads.
Or the Legends imprint where you had this big 2-page spread and it looked like a movie serial. You had Madman there, then you had a Hellboy with a tentacle around him, and then you went down and it was announcing the Legend imprint at Dark Horse. That was probably.
Do they even make ads anymore? Or they like all the ads I see nowadays are either covers, they're showing you the cover, or they're giving you a sample of the comic.
Yeah, I don't think they do ads.
Good question. Yeah.
I remember I was thinking about it, and they don't do any inside advertising in their own comics.
Well, a staple of Image used to be that you would put other people's ads who have books at Image in your books for free. That used to be a staple of Image Comics.
Like,
I have no idea if they kept that up.
There's Sacred Six, but it's just the cover.
Yeah.
And these covers, they don't pull you in.
These books available at Dynamite, it's just the covers.
One thing that I was remembering when the covers that we had in the Brazilian books, all of them have a lot of copy, even throughout the 90s, and they were designed by people who knew they were in the newsstands.
Two more in the newsstand covers.
Yeah. There's there are no slogans, no copy.
It just says a crossover event sure to shake the universes.
Boring.
Who's that for? So I don't even really know if they do ads anymore in comics.
Guys, we were more excited talking about Steve Gerber's older stuff than what you're pulling out of those books, if you notice. And we bored somebody to death. They left us right when we started doing that. I don't blame them. It's funny we're all lovers of comics, but then when we get to modern times, we're sort of like
Spider-Man Free Comic Book Day. If anything should have good ads in this should, because it's an ad.
Right.
The back cover, I'm pretty sure that's just a cover. Let's flip through the rest of it. How to read comics the Marvel way. You have to teach people how to read. I guess you do, since there's esoteric. I mean, that's not really an ad, but
while you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and open this poster book of the DC 52 I got for $3.
Open that up. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, I'm gonna get.
Does Marvel have artists in the editorial department?
What was that?
Does Marvel have artists in the editorial department nowadays? No. Well, of course they were not going to have any ads.
Yeah. Well, they used to have an ad department. There's Morbius. It's just covers.
The covers.
Marvel used to have an ad department. Oz, just a cover. So this is why I can't remember any ads. Just a cover. It is previews. I don't think that. I'm gonna have to ask.
This thing is sealed tight. I mean, I don't know why they took such good care of this, but
I remember
the plastic on this is super tight. There is not a spot there to start cutting open.
One of my favorite ads back in the day was when Marvel was doing the King Conan series.
Oh yeah,
and it was a Mike Kaluta cover, and the text was "The King is dead." And it's like that.
Right.
That's an awesome ad.
That was an excellent cover too.
Yeah.
Do you remember Frank Miller's Doctor Strange?
No.
The ad for that? It never happened. All we ever got was the ad. But it was a beautiful Frank Miller drawing of Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you, the ads that always made me want to know more was anything that had to do with Marvel's Shadow line, Epic line, and early Vertigo. Those ads would pull you in. You flip that over, and you see some John J. Muth art, and you were saying this was a Moonshadow was a fairy tale for grown-ups and stuff. It was just enough to make you be like, damn, I want that. The Black Dragon.
Right.
I think some of the best advertisements were for those epic lines and early Vertigo lines that would just suck you in. The Books of Magic series that went on and on, they kept showing up with death and all this great Charles Best artwork. Kaluta had some of that to do with the Witch's story that Robinson wrote that came out of the Sandman stuff.
Yeah, witchcraft.
Yeah. Those lines there, I think, had the best advertising.
At this point, I really only follow creators whose names I know, like Simonson on Ragnarok or Giffen on Inferior 5. I've always followed creators, but I'm also always looking for new stuff. I'm one of those people. It's like that's why I for the last month I bought some new first issue each week, but none of them. But I'm always willing. Like I said, if I've only got 3 or 4 comics that week, which I usually only have 3 or 4, I'm willing to give a first issue a try. If a cover catches my eye or I flip it open and like the artwork, even if I don't know the people involved. But I'm always artwork driven. It's not like I can flip it open and like the writing.
Touching on that, Paulo, how did you like that video for the Con Crew?
Oh, that was an ad.
Yes.
What was that?
Wasn't that great though?
Yeah, I wanted to read that. I should. The thing is, I think they're working on a second book now.
Well, the second issue's out. He's working on the third issue now.
Okay, yeah.
What book is that an ad for?
It's called The Con Crew. It's published by a French publisher. Basically the story behind the book is what if Kong didn't die at the end of the movie and he had lived. And basically, the island of Manhattan was reverted to like Skull Island sort of conditions. It was cordoned off by the U.S. military. You couldn't go in there if you did, you'd get eaten by a dinosaur. But if I can find the URL for the YouTube video, I'll send it to you because it's absolutely gorgeous stuff. It's my favorite new book that's been published in the last 10 years.
Wow. High praise. And Dave Enrique says, does anyone know why Miller never did Doctor Strange? I used to know. I can't remember.
No idea.
There was some mundane reason where he got another book. I can't remember the exact timing on it.
Right.
But it wasn't a particularly interesting reason. Otherwise, I'd probably remember it, but maybe not. It's been a long time.
Those 70s house ads before the implosion were actually really good. And then somebody's going way back here. They like old ads for Cerebus.
Cerebus doesn't love you. He just wants your money.
Okay.
The only ones who like those covers are speculators. Yeah.
And cool. All right. This book is actually cool. Apparently, it's not put out by DC. It's some Insights Edition Studios or something. I don't know what this is. It has an ad of their other books. And I thought I was going to make fun of this thing, but this is actually really solid. It's like high quality stock on the cover, and the back has a nice gloss finish on the actual pieces here. It's like I don't think you're really supposed to rip these out for a poster. But I mean,
Bagley said Miller left for Ronin, didn't he? He may have. I can't remember. He left for something. I can't remember the timing now.
Because he was going to do Ronin at Epic before he defected to DC.
Yeah, that may have been it. As I said, I can't remember the exact.
The original
year. You remember that?
Epic launches in '82, and they were going to launch with 3 books, which was Dreadstar, Ronin, and Star Slammers. Then Miller defects to DC, and Star Slammers only comes out late as a single graphic novel.
All right.
Speaking of, have any of you guys read Star Slammers?
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay, here's my question because I haven't read it. Okay. Are there any similarities to that and the science fiction series that was written by David Drake called Hammer Slammers?
I have no idea what Hammer Slammers is.
It's a futuristic tank. It's a futuristic take on tank warfare.
Oh no,
nothing to do with it.
Okay,
I actually still remember Star Slammers because there's one line I liked it. Star Slammers, I guess, were sort of intergalactic mercenaries, but I don't know if they're really mercenary. You could hire them
because I knew there was some sort of a science fiction military connection there.
But the main story, if I remember it correctly, was like I haven't read it in decades.
Right.
But I can remember this one part where there was this planet. This is at the beginning of the story. There was this planet who was under siege by some other people. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking for the Star Slammers to rescue them.
Gotcha.
And so they put out they whatever, they hired them, they did whatever, they got in touch with them, and the Star Slammers showed up, and they were like, 3 guys? You sent us 3 guys? The Star Slammers were like, don't worry, it's enough.
Right. It's funny. I remember an ad for Star Slammers that
and
Walt
then they, of course, the Star Slammers with all this gear took over and won the battle. Then I think the story started after that, but I can't remember what the rest of the story was. I keep meaning to go back and reread it.
I remember that.
If I remember correctly, too, Star Slammers started out as Walt Simonson's senior project at RISD.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I remember an ad for Star Slammers where Malt had drawn one of the characters, and his face was obviously Jack Kirby.
And the IDW hardcover as those strips he did at college.
Yeah.
Okay.
It starts funny, but it evolves into real sci-fi.
Okay, gotcha.
I've been meaning to reread it for like 20 years, but still haven't.
And I've also never read Alien Legion.
I remember liking Alien Legion, but I didn't read a ton of it.
I just remember seeing a few covers for it. It's like, that looks interesting. I need to read that one of these days.
The thing is, there were some reprints a few years ago, and I missed out on those.
Right.
Who did Alien Legion? Who was that again? That was
that Alan Zellis? No.
Yeah, Alan Zellis,
something like that. Okay. Carl Potts came up with the concept, but he didn't write anything.
Right.
And now I'm missing. Yeah, Alan Zelenetz did the first volume. And Chuck Dixon did the second.
They had a good artist on it. That's why I was buying it. Who drew it?
Larry Stroman, I think.
Was it Larry? No, I don't think he was the. I can't remember.
I'm trying to think of that 90s sci-fi movie, Star Troopers or something. It kind of reminded me of that. The other way around. I saw Star Troopers. I have one issue of Alien Legion around here somewhere.
The concept was the French Foreign Legion in space, because they were all from different species and different backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's just funny the terminology used in that 90s movie, Starship Troopers. That's not the way I think of Starship Troopers at all.
Well, that's because it was completely different.
Yeah, it's like you mean the book by Robert Heinlein, right? Yeah.
Well,
the movie was a parody of the book in a way.
I thought the best thing about the movie were the little propaganda movies within the movie itself.
But Alien Legion has a following. It still has people who love those books. That's amazing.
I just never read it. I always wanted to.
It was solid. Yeah, sort of spot. Was that Butch Geist? I remember liking those.
Yeah, I think this is Manlow, Swords of the Swashbuckler. I'm definitely going to, since we're going back, around that time, I'm definitely going to go back and get these Space Pirates and stuff like that out in space.
There's a graphic novel of that, too. That's where it started.
Did Chaykin work on that at one time?
Let me look here. Let me make sure I'm remembering.
Not that I know of. I remember Butch Geist drew the original one.
Yeah, it's Banlow and Geist in there. But this is some beautiful artwork with him in here with these books.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, going back to these epic books, that's what made me think about them. The ads, everything they were doing. I would have loved to have had a comic book shop near me back when I was 12. My whole collecting could have been different if I had these to get a hold of.
Luckily, I was about 15 then, and a comic shop opened a couple of towns away.
I always like John Bolton's artwork on that Black Dragon series.
That was good stuff. That was Claremont written too, if I remember.
Yeah, it was.
And this is a book. It's so great to see Usagi. I put this up there with Usagi Yojimbo for some reason. Elf Quest, something's got to happen. More and more people need to have this book get more credit than it does, if that makes sense.
I read the original Elf Quest series, but I haven't really kept up with it since then.
I tried. It just doesn't do anything for me.
The original black and white, what was that, 20 issues maybe?
Well, I just know when it comes to indie stuff, everybody goes to Cerebus and stuff. And
Yeah.
ElfQuest has been around, I swear, I think just as
Been
long.
around a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, ElfQuest and Cerebus were a couple of the first two.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like Cerebus is the one that became famous and took off. And I'm always like, well, there was this ElfQuest too, man.
Well, ElfQuest was at Marvel for years and here and there, and they're still doing stuff. But like I said, I burned out. It never did it beyond those first 20 issues. It didn't do anything for me. I don't know. I don't know if my tastes changed or what.
Oh man, we got all kinds of people answering us about Alien Legion.
Okay.
Frank Sirocco, that was who I was trying to remember. He did some nice stuff on Alien Legion.
Yeah, Carl Potts is the only name I would have remembered. And the only other thing I can think of him doing was like this one-shot Punisher graphic novel or something.
Yeah, because when Sirocco left Alien Legion, I wasn't as interested in it. We liked what Starflame was at the time with the Shogun. I'm going to walk and see if I can pull that off my shelf.
Yeah, the thing did not look as Nordic as what he did with Thor. It was.
Well, I tell you what, man. I know the viewership's dropping off. A lot of people got to go and hung out with us for 2 hours, but this is the point where I think we're getting deep into some deep.
I got the graphic novel. I got the graphic novel and the IDW edition.
Okay.
I left a link in the private chat. The one that Scott was talking about, Kong Crew.
Right. That trailer is just fantastic, man.
Wunderbar. It's getting crazy on us here.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of postage stamps.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to leave this out and put it in my To Be Read section over here.
My To Be Read section comes up halfway on the side of my couch now.
My To Be Read section is just my entire place.
Marauder the She-Wolf. That was another one I enjoyed.
I was getting ready to say, man. I think
never read Marauder the She-Wolf.
I think I'm just going to get a list of Epic magazines and start there and back up. I was
going to say Epic Illustrated just in and of itself was really good stuff.
I still have all mine, but I haven't looked at them since the 80s. I'm going to have to. We'll have to do a show where we do nothing but look at Epic Illustrated.
Yeah.
That would work for me.
I think I'm missing like 2, maybe 3 issues to have a complete run. The last one and number 3 are impossible to get. The last one has an Alan Moore story in it, and I think that's why it's in probably a low print run where it was the last issue.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There's an Alan Moore story in it.
The last issue, yeah.
I don't remember that. Well, I haven't seen him I haven't looked at him in so long, but I don't know that.
Yeah, and issue 3, that thing is bound to start going down since the movie for Dreadstar, that was first appearance of Dreadstar, apparently is not a go. So
yeah, I bought issue 2 off the newsstand when I was 14.
Yeah,
and didn't find issue 1 for a long time, like for a decade after that, I think. But I bought them all off the newsstand.
Yeah. And I'm so glad they brought up Archie Goodwin, because the books that I ended up liking as I was growing up every now and then, when I got older, I realized they were Archie Goodwin books.
Yeah.
I think in Tommy's quote there, you can just take out the word epic and just put fill in the blank. Anything when guarded by Archie Goodwin is golden.
Right. He's got a very good reputation. He left Marvel before I got there, but everyone always said nothing but nice things about him.
All right, we got a compliment here. I want to put that out there. Thank you. Thank you for having the view count go up. I appreciate that. It's awesome, man.
Well, right. I'm running out of energy.
Well, I was getting ready to say I really do have to go now. I got stuff to put up where I was pulling stuff out.
I left you a link in the private chat. See if you can share that YouTube link.
I didn't even know we had a private chat. I'm so glad they got a bubble. All right, what can I do here? You want me to copy the link and put it in the chat?
Yeah, and then share the screen with the video. That was the thing Scott was talking about.
All right, let me see if I can do that. Now, how do I get back to the comments? I'm so old. I don't look it, but this is the body of a 70-year-old man, I swear.
Hey, got to get out there cycling.
All right, let me see now. Let me open up a page here. What am I pulling up here? What is this?
It was Kong Crew, that thing that Scott was saying about King Kong living in Manhattan.
It's kind of like he took, they took panels of the
Yeah.
comic and almost made like a motion comic kind of video from it.
See if you can screen share so that everybody can see it.
Oh yeah. It just takes me a second here. It gives me the option of 3 or 4 screens to pull from. All right, is it up? Is it up? Because once I pull this up, I can't see you guys. Okay, here we go.
New York, 1947. It's destroyed. King Kong did that much damage?
The Kong rules over Manhattan.
Okay. Meanwhile, back at the airplane hangar. Where did the pterodactyl come from? Were they King Kong?
Kong Island. They probably went back for some more.
It's from the island.
Kong is not
Is
alone.
that Spartan? I saw a Spartan.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing. Kong's presence in his island attracts monsters. It's like he's a time machine black hole. So he attracts monsters to himself. Now, being in New York, the same happens.
He's the monster magnet. The Kong Crew. Okay.
Yeah. The publisher is that thing, Ankama. It's an independent publisher in France.
Yeah.
They usually do manga style stuff.
Well, I tell you what, man. In this house, even though I go back and forth with the new wife and stuff, Kong,
I know what's coming.
Yeah, Kong beats Godzilla. Okay, in this house, and I'm fighting every day for that in this house. I miss one day, and Godzilla rises. So it is a thing. Come to Facebook and support me on that, guys. All right, guys, thumbs it up.
Let's end with a mini death. Scott Koblish.
Ooh,
there he is on his little raft. He's sailing away. He's almost rescued, and a giant fish eats him.
Of course it does.
Story of my life, brother. Story of my life.
All right.
All right, guys. Subscribe to everybody here. We'll talk Scott into stop being a cheap bastard and get a camera and start a YouTube channel. I said it. No.
I may have to get a camera.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I don't see a camera showing up.
Yeah. I just use the camera on my laptop.
You can do it on your phone. Steam. This steaming service works on your phone now. So
finally,
yeah. About a month ago, I got that.
I'll tell you what. It's funny you mentioned that. The only thing that I have found that works better on a phone versus a PC is Instagram. Everything else in the world, the PC is better at.
It might be. Okay. All right, guys.
Only if you have a camera.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thumb it up, share it, subscribe, check out Paulo's channel, Jared's channel, and we may have another person or two popping up over the next month here. So
cool.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.